So here we are again. Oregon could be losing a member of its coaching staff. Rashad Samples, the running backs coach that came in to replace Carlos Loughlin and went to Ohio State. Samples was instrumental, it seems, in getting to Corey Moore, number one wide receiver in the class of 2025, to come to Oregon. And he's reportedly interviewing for the same job on Brian Schottenheimer's staff in the NFL. Got ties to the Duncanville, Texas area where his dad is a head coach, and maybe he wants to go make the jump to the NFL. Our old pal Chip Kelly's going up there. I'll have more thoughts on that on tomorrow's show because basically Ohio State's losing a good chunk of their staff, but that's also kind of the point that I want to make here. This is just how this goes. You don't see a lot of lower level staffs or teams or programs losing their coaches for what can be viewed as a better opportunity. Now, this has not officially happened. It's been reported by a couple different places. I saw Jared Mack of 24/7 Sports tweet out a piece about it. But I think if Oregon lost Samples, it would be more of a recruiting hit than anything. Because the talent level Oregon's brought in between Loughlin and Samples at running back and the production they've had from that position, it's been fairly consistent. And I expect that at every position for Oregon in today's world of college football and what Dan Lanning has done with regards to setting the expectations and standards for the program across the board. But I would not like to lose Rashad Samples because he is known as a dynamite recruiter. And sometimes it's just about the Jimmies and the Joes. And Lanning has spoken before about how he's got a Rolodex of guys. I'm sure he'd be able to find someone who is more than capable of serving in that role at a high level. But Samples has got a lot of buzz around him as someone who could be a head coach one day that you might look back in 10 years and say, man, look at who Oregon had on their staff at the time. Will Stein's a head coach, and Rashad Samples is a head coach, and Junior Adams is an OC over here. He's one of those guys who I'd like to be able to stick around because I see what he's done, what he did this past year. I like Oregon's running back room. I see what he's got going in next year. I like Oregon's running back room again. So, worthy of mentioning, but we'll see if there is more to come with that. Let's hop into the mailbag. So, YouTube comments, Twitter, DMs and mentions wide open at S. McLaughlin CFB or at Locked On Ducks. If you want priority access and other perks as well, go become a Locked On Ducks insider. Link in the description below. You can get a free 14-day trial. Rex sent in this question. Hey, bud, could Lanning have an interest in Ryan Grubb? It doesn't seem like Ryan Grubb hasn't jumped at the chance to join Kalen DeBoer at Bama. This question was sent in last week. I think our offense lacked at times during the season, and I'm not sure if that's on Stein's play calling or on what Dylan Gabriel was seeing on defense. So, since this question was submitted, Ryan Grubb has indeed been hired to Alabama staff to be their offensive coordinator and play caller. Not surprising. He's no longer with my Seahawks. I didn't quite get that move from the Seahawks standpoint. Didn't think he was a problem. Seahawks have no interior offensive line. But why am I bringing this up if the move has already happened? Because Will Stein is not going anywhere. And frankly, I don't even think there's a hot seat discussion here, or even a hot seat thought, or anywhere close to it. Because here's something to remember about Will Stein. He was a co-OC and the play caller for 1 year at UTSA before coming to Oregon. He is still a young coach who, like Dan Lanning, is learning how to be better. I thought he was better in 2024 than he was in 23, because in 23, there was a little bit more of, hey, Bo Nix is just going to save you here and make a spectacular play. Well, Dylan Gabriel doesn't have the same sorts of traits, and yet Oregon won the Big Ten championship anyway. And yeah, in the Rose Bowl, he wasn't very good. The offense didn't score till the last play of the first half. So yeah, I'm fine criticizing him as the OC for that particular performance. But where were my Will Stein critics in the Big Ten championship game? Where were they in the first Ohio State game? And in those big games, yeah, you go to the coaching staff and say that's most important, more than anything else. If you've got the guys to go toe-to-toe with the players on the other sideline, it comes down to the staff. It did in the Rose Bowl. Oregon got out-coached. But they also out-coached that same staff that won a national championship earlier in the season and beat a semifinal team and had an 18-point lead and scored a touchdown in the first 3 drives. Penn State was a really good team with a really good defense and a bunch of great players, and they took Abdul Carter out of the game. He did not have the sort of impact he's had against other teams this year. and Oregon scored a bunch of points, and the defense had a really bad day. Coaches, just like players, can improve and develop, and I think Stein got better from year 1 to year 2. He's got to take another jump. Lanning, Lupoy, same sorts of things. So that's why I wanted to bring up that particular question, because no, I don't think Lanning would have ever considered. I mean, I think Ryan Grubb's a great offensive coordinator, and sure, I would have taken him if Will Stein moved on, but I'm just not in the camp where I'm in a hurry to move on from Stein as the OC. So this question came in from Quackerjack. We've got a couple more here today. You have highlighted several players who have signed but are currently away on a mission. I'm interested in your take on Oregon's value in these players, given the past when so many have changed their decision. Well, I don't know who the so many players in the past who have changed their decision are exactly, so you can shoot me a note if you have specific players in mind. But there are one or two guys, I believe. Alai Kalaniuvalu is a mission kid, and Oregon's looking at a quarterback for 2026 who wouldn't be there until 2027. Gatlin Bear was a 2024 five-star wideout. He arrives in 2026, so is essentially part of that recruiting class. A couple thoughts here, because this is incredibly prevalent. Utah is becoming more and more of a recruiting hotbed. It's not, on a Washington or Arizona level. I think it's just a notch below, but it's certainly above, the state of Oregon or a lot of states in the middle of the country in terms of churning out high-end football talent. It's something that coaching staffs are well aware of. This is why you have personnel departments, Marshall Malkow, the chief of staff, to figure out, okay, here's what we have for this year and that year and how you're going to be able to do this. But I have not noticed, and BYU's, of course, been dealing with this for, a long time in a much greater numbers than what everybody else has. I have not noticed kids that, go on missions have a higher or lower hit rate with regards to their college playing career than anybody else. And I'm not privy to exactly, what they're doing for 24 hours in a day when they're serving their missions, but kids have shown up to college, gone on their missions, and then come back and still been really good players, or taken their mission and then got into college and developed into good football players. I think it can be an advantage, quite frankly, because some kids, this may shock you. I stopped growing a long time ago. Not everybody is like that. Some kids at 18 still have a little bit more growth to do. They can build up a little bit more muscle, or they can add an extra inch. And sometimes that ordinarily wouldn't happen until their sophomore or junior year. Well, instead they're coming in as freshmen. They have the same eligibility, and you can get kids that are a little bit older, a little bit more mature, a little bit more physically grown out into their full potential there. Like, they've been at coaches and staffs across the country have been able to manage this for a really, really long time. So I don't look at them and, kids that go on missions and say, it's a big question. There's just that. No, it's just, it adjusts the timeline. Ryder Lyons, a 2026 recruit, might not get to campus till 27 or 28. That's how I look at it. Kalani Uvalu could be a starting center for Oregon in a couple of years as a true freshman. Or he won't be a starting center until 2027. Just have to wait and see. But that's the only thing that I look at for that. This question came from a Locked On Ducks insider. Mailbag, which Duck in this year's draft has the best chance of succeeding at the next level? My thoughts are Connerly. Your thoughts? So, I love Josh Connerly. He had a bad rep that went viral at the Senior Bowl. It was ugly. It was an ugly rep. Josh Connerly's really good. For all those that say Oregon can't recruit and develop high school kids, Josh Connerly's a pretty good example. That guy played a little as a freshman, started as a sophomore. He was a good player, but not a great one. And by this year, he might have just worked himself into being a first-round draft pick. He progressed from the first half of the season to the second half of the season. I think Connerly can be a franchise-caliber left tackle. I'm still going to take Derek Harmon. I think he is the best pro prospect Oregon has in this 2025 NFL draft. He was good at Michigan State. He was even better with the Ducks. I mean, dude was all over the place. And I think from a consistency standpoint, I liked Harmon more than Connerly, and we're splitting hairs here. We are completely splitting hairs. Left tackles are more highly sought after than interior guys, but who's going to be a higher level player? Who do I feel was more dominant and can translate that to the next level? Harmon's got the whole package. He can stop the run. He can move laterally. He can rush the passer. He can beat you with power. He can beat you with speed. He's got great hands, good footwork, instinctual play. Like, you can say a lot of those things about Connerly as well. I was just more consistently impressed with Harmon. I think that's going to be a sizable loss. I think both guys are huge losses going into next year in the trenches. But I'd lean Harmon's importance individually. From an individual production standpoint, Connerly plays the more important position going into next year that Oregon has to replace. Of course, they brought in a couple transfer tackles to do that. But yeah, I would say Harmon is first, then Connerly. Third, man, I don't know why Tez Johnson can't be Tyler Lockett. Just go run some routes, avoid getting hit, and get open, catch the football. He looked real. I wasn't sure what his pro prospects were going to be. I think he made himself a good amount of money at the Senior Bowl, because when you can run routes like that, it doesn't really matter how big you are. Danny Amendola, Wes Welker, they've shown us over the years, like, you either are able to get open or you're not. Tez Johnson's going to be able to get open, but I'd say Harmon has, I think, the highest ceiling of any of Oregon's draft prospects this year, and I'm very curious to see how many Ducks wind up getting drafted and where they go.